Baby, you're a stitch man. Baby, you're a stitch man. Baby, you're a stitch man. Duh. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Okay, so I'm here at my mom's house feeding her cat because she was out of town for the night. And it dawns on me, I'm surrounded by a house full of my cross stitchings and she's not home. So why not take the opportunity to give you a little tour? I am totally not prepared to do this at all. I didn't write anything down. I didn't have any sort of plan for this whatsoever. So I hope I can still make it fun. Might just try to breeze through it and edit it into something else that's a little bit more fun, but this might be my only chance to do this for who knows how long, so screw it. I'm doing it right now. Look at me, cleaning up my language. Screw it. Fuck that. I think as a sort of prologue, if you want to call it that, I think there's a few of my old gross looking stitchings down in my mom's basement that are not fit for human eyes, but I think they're still down there. So I'm gonna start off by heading down there, see if I can find some of them, dig them out, and see what they look like now. Let's head down into the dungeon.
Norman, don't put me in the root cellar. I can walk on my own.
Hey, by the way, look what a cool teenager I was. This is my old bedroom right here. Here's my giant Bob Dylan on the wall right outside my bedroom door. Isn't that cool? First thing I ever bought on eBay. Cost me more for shipping than it did for the poster. Here's my sexy Marilyn and my studly James Dean outside my wall. And my Einstein on the door because I thought I was the smartest person who ever lived. Unlike every other teenager. I was so cool. So here we have, in all of its brilliance, the very first cross-stitching I ever gave my mom as a Christmas present. It is magnificently ridiculous. I can't get away from this fucking light, but I mean, I don't even know what to say about it other than the couple of things that I remember are I had no concept of even what the different colors were. I was using, this was supposed to be all just white in here and whatever the hell these jars are. And I used something that I thought looked like white, and then I ran out of it and I grabbed something else that thought looked like white. And you can see in this jar here on the right that they're clearly two different colors. And I was just like, well, whatever, I guess they made a mistake. I also remember that I had also had no concept. All I knew how to do at this point was make an X. I didn't know that it was better if the X's were all going in the same direction. So you can't really tell, but all of my X's are going in completely different directions right now. And I also didn't know how to secure a stitch when I was done. I needed to cut it off and rethread my needle. I didn't know how to secure it, so I always just left them hanging there. And you can see that at least one of them, and probably way more than one of them, came out because I had no idea what I was doing. But, I mean, I guess for the sake of looking back and seeing where I started and how far I've come, I guess it's kind of worth keeping in a basement anyway. I mean, it's not really worth hanging. But you can kind of see the, also, not to get off on another little bit of a tangent here, but that kind of thing, sort of I've had friends over the years that, I'm shaking this all over the fucking place. I've had friends over the years that kind of wanted, they saw my stitchings and they kind of wanted to learn how to do it, and they try to get me to teach them how to do it. But they want to dive right into what I'm doing right now. That's what they want to do. But I try to explain this to people. That's not where I started. I started with this. This isn't even where I started. That's not even where I started. Way smaller than that. I started with tiny little things, and then slightly smaller tiny little things, and then bookmarks, and then things that didn't get finished because I screwed them up. That probably took me a year or two to even work up to that. So, I don't want to make it sound like you can't do what I do, because yeah, it's true. I know how to thread a needle. I know how to make an X. What's the difference? But you can't just dive in to a heaven and earth project when you've never stitched a single stitch in your life. It's not going to work. You're not going to stick with it. Lo and behold, nobody ever stuck with it. They never even finished a page. anywhere close to a page. You have to work your way up. Sorry, you gotta put in the time. Here's Kermit the Frog, baby Kermit. Oh, I'm Kermit the Frog here. What I remember about this is, I'm not going to have a whole story about every single stitching, like this is going to be a 10-hour video, but what I remember about this is I used to love to stitch in just like straight lines, top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. So when I got down to his mouth, I would get to, I'll put this down, here, and then I would jump down and keep going in green, and I'd get to here, and I'd jump down, jump down, jump down. So by the time I finished all of the green in behind was like covering where I was supposed to do this red. And when I started doing the red, all the green was bleeding through. So I was like, well, shit, what am I supposed to do? So I flipped it over and I cut them all off and cleaned it all up, which is absolutely ridiculous because what do you think happened? All of my stitches started to come out and I was like, oh shit, why are my stitches coming out? So, I mean, some of them you can't really tell. If you look real close, you can, but I got them kind of secured when I was stitching with the red. I kind of tied them off with the red, I guess, a little bit because I stitched over them. But what a ridiculous thing to do. I had no idea what I was doing. Here's another little throwaway basement-y. Let's not hang this one. I mean, it's okay. Kitty cat with Christmas lights. This is the first one that had ever kind of dawned on me that like this lettering on white Aida is a little bit like you can't really, it's okay on camera, I guess, but when you can't really see it all that well. So that was the first sort of inkling that I ever had of maybe I don't have to be completely locked into exactly what the pattern says. It told me to do it in orange, but maybe I should have done it in green or something that showed up a little better. I don't know. Look at this guy. Decaf. Get it? Because he's a baby cow and it's coffee, like decaf? Classic. And here's another one that obviously came out of the same pattern book. A mother's love is like no other. Aww. Aren't I such a good son? I mean, it's in the basement, but whatever. It's the thought that counts. Look at this guy. You don't want to fuck with that guy. He will mess you up. So now we're getting into stuff that's kind of worth hanging on a wall. And the next one that I did for the very next Christmas, after I did that shitty tomato one, was this one right here with all the cats. Which I think was a pretty ambitious leap from one to the next. Because it's still kind of a little bit amateurish, but it's quite a big step up from that tomato one. And it was the very next thing that I did. So, I mean, as far as like evolution goes, I think that was a pretty big step. This was also the first one where I decided I'm going to try to make an effort to make my X's go all in the same direction. So that was kind of like a little bit of a stitching graduation for me, I think. I think I was 12 years old when I did this. And the other thing that I remember about this is I was eating a chocolate bar while I was stitching, and I got chocolate, like I think in behind these flowers or something, somewhere in that area. And I was like, shit, now I tried to rub it off and I ended up just rubbing it in more. I was like, well, shit, what am I going to do? So I just stitched over it. So every time I look at this, I giggle and I'm like, I wonder if that chocolate's still there. So from there, I went to this, also a cat one, because I had a big book of cat patterns. I probably had several big books of cat patterns, and we're cat people, so you can never go wrong with a cat stitching. I mean, this is nothing special either, but I was starting to get into like whatever the biggest one in the book was the one that I wanted to do, because I just wanted to like show that like I don't have to do little trinkets. Look, I can do big stuff. That's the same reason I did this one. This is nothing special and nothing like sentimental or anything like that. It just was one of the biggest patterns that I could find at the time. And so I did it. I think I gave that other cat one and this one to my mom for the same Christmas, like 2 in a year. I was stitching furiously that year. I was like, I think I was 13-ish, and I didn't just do those 2 that year. I did a whole bunch that year, a bunch of little ones, a bunch out of that cat book, like stuff that I didn't finish and stuff that hasn't survived. But I was just trying to work my way up to like whatever the biggest pattern I could find. I didn't even care what it was. That's the one that I wanted to do. And I didn't know where to get patterns. I didn't know what the internet was. There may have not even have been an internet when I was 13. Like me over here with my walker and my gray hair and my bald spot. What the hell's the internet? I'm stuck to whatever I can find in a store. So whatever a big one was, just give me the big one. That same way of thinking is what led me to also do this one. Again, nobody cares about ducks or apples or whatever the hell this is. But I didn't know where to buy cross stitch patterns, so whenever I would find a place that sold them, I would dig through them and find whatever the nicest and especially biggest one that I could find is. Big at the time was all that I cared about. What's the biggest one? And this had, at the time, this was the biggest one that I'd ever seen or attempted. So sold. It's big. I'm doing it. From there, for the next couple of Christmases, I did bird patterns, which, yes, I still cared about the size if I could find a big one, but this was the point, whereas I don't know how old I was, 15-ish, where I started to also care that it was a nice looking pattern. Like, big wasn't the only factor. It also had to be something that I liked and that I thought she would like. And I think this was the turning point of like, okay, it's pretty big, but it's also really nice. I think that like it's not just a duck with a basket of apples. It's something that I think that I would enjoy doing and that she would enjoy having. So I started to grow up a little bit when I was like 15 or however old I was. Same thing with this one. This was the very next Christmas after that. Birds again, like, okay, birds 2 years in a row, whatever. But like, I mean, I was still kind of limited in what I had. And I thought this was a pretty nice one. Even now, like, you know, this is a good 20 years-ish old right now. And even now, when I come to her house, I always stop and look at this one and go like, you know what? That's damn good. I like that. That kind of, that holds up with some of my other ones. Like, I'd hang that on my own wall right now. So after all of that, by the time I was in my like late teens to like early 20s, getting to be a big, all grown up kind of a stitcher, my mom was going through, I'm not going through a phase. Like, no, she was really into making quilts, like to the point where she was going to the market here in Fredericton and selling her quilts. And like, she's so good at it. She's made so many quilts. So she was really into quilting. So I, like a good son, hunted down a bunch of quilting cross-stitch patterns. And so for the next few years after that, I gave her some quilt stitches because I was trying to like, you know, hey, look, your quilts are awesome and I still want to do you a stitching, and look at me being a good son. I'm going to give you some quilt stuff. Let's go look at it. So this was the first quilty one that I ever found and gave to her for Christmas. Sorry, it's behind a chair and right next to a window, so it's hard for me to get a good shot of it here, especially without the glare. But I'm really happy with how, like, it's pretty colorful and it's got some cool looking quilts on it. Look, it says quilts for sale right there, which was because my mom was selling her quilts at the time and I'm trying to be a good son. Look, here's a quilts for sale one because you're selling quilts too. Aren't I a good son? Anyway, it turned out really good. Like, you know, these are old. This is classic stuff now. I'm an old man. This was like almost 20 years ago, and I still look at these and go like, you know what, that was pretty good. It's also, I think this was the first one. I don't know that it's full coverage, but it's pretty close to full coverage. And I like the way that looked. I like the way that it came out in the frame. I like not seeing my Ada at all, really, except for like some white sky. So after this one, as far as full coverage goes, I'm not sure that I really turned back. There might have been one or two little exceptions over here, but full coverage was my thing after this. Here's another one right here that I did for her the next Christmas. More quilts. See, right there. Quilts. Maybe I should be getting in here a little bit closer so you can critique my stitching. See that it's actual, like, I mean, it's not bad. There's a lot of back stitching back in these days. One thing I do not miss, now that I'm doing mostly like heaven and earth designs and those types of things, there's no back stitching at all in any of those patterns. And as much as I liked when I would do back stitching, that's the finishing touch that would make the thing come to life. So I liked it having it done, but I did not like doing it because I felt like I was done. I'm done, but I'm not really done. I got to go over the whole damn thing again, and sometimes really annoyingly and intricately. It annoyed the shit out of me. Here's the last in the trilogy wall of quilts that we've got here. More of a wintry one, pretty much the same as the last one, but more wintry. This one is noteworthy in that this is the only thing that I've ever done that I actually put my signature on right here on this little mailbox. DAC 04. 17 long years ago, I was working on this. 2004, DAC. I've never signed or stitched my initials or done anything at all in any of my other stitchings, and maybe I should. This is the first Christmassy type thing that I did for my mom, called Teddy Bear Santa. Sort of the same style, I think even the same company as some of those other quilt patterns. And it was Christmassy. I know you'd like, I was like, I know you're probably not going to hang this all year long because it's Santa Claus, but, and she doesn't, which is fine, because every year when it comes out, I'm like, oh yeah, Teddy Bear Santa. I forgot all about that every single year. This one with a cat in the quilt came out of one of those quilty pattern books, and I did it really early one year, and I was just going to keep it as a backup in case I couldn't find anything better. I was just going to have it done, and like, now I don't have to panic if I get close to Christmas and I don't have anything done. And of course, knowing that I already had one done, I dragged my feet on looking for anything else or doing anything else. So, I mean, it was good to have it done early in the year, but it ended up not really being a backup. I just gave it to her for that Christmas that year. This was the last quilting related one that I did for her, one of the following Christmases. It was kind of like enough already with the quilts, but I didn't really have anything else left, and I hadn't found any other patterns, and I hadn't done this one yet, and I wanted to do something. So, I mean, it's okay, but like enough already with the quilts. This one I just took off the wall because the glare was so bad. But this one I found in a little shop in Nova Scotia from a company called Cross My Heart. And this at the time I thought was the nicest thing that I had ever found. And I was really excited about it. And so I snatched it up, and it was also at the time the biggest, most ambitious one that I had ever tried to do. It was the first one that I ever did where hang on, I'm running around here. I'm not a young man anymore. This was the first one that I did where the pattern wasn't all on one big page. Like some of those other bigger ones, they were those ones, where you kind of just unfold them and they're just one giant pattern, which is annoying as shit. Like, why did I ever do those? Or whoever thought that was a good idea? But this was the first one I ever did where the pattern was on, like, I think 8 separate pages. And I was like, whoa, 8-page pattern. Cool, man. I'm in. Count me in. I'm doing it. And it turned out really good. I'd never tried anything this big or complicated or ambitious before, especially in here. Look at this bullshit. Holy shit. What was I thinking? And all that down here, and I'm flipping from page to page, and I'm back stitching all over the place and doing all these bricks. Like, this was Christmas of 2008 that I did this. And it still holds up as one of my favorites, I think. It's pretty good. I like it. Good job, me. This was just a tiny little ditty that came out of that same stained glass pattern book as the last one. Another one that I kind of did, just whipped up as just a backup plan, just in case I didn't do anything else. And like, I should never just assume I have a backup plan, because my backup is my plan. Once I have it done, I don't do anything else. So this was kind of a smaller little thing that I did for the next Christmas, but whatever, it's still pretty nice. It's not really a throwaway. It's nice. So now we graduate into the age of the World Wide Web. And I finally discovered that, why is it so hard for me to find cross-stitch patterns, and where do I find them? What store do I go to? Hey, maybe, I've got this thing called Amazon. I've got this thing called the internet that I like have stuff shipped to my house. Maybe I could find some stuff online. So I found 3 patterns on 1, 2, 3 stitch. One of them was this one, Advice from a Caterpillar, that I told you about, that was like gigantic, and I couldn't wait to do it, and that was going to be the one that I was going to do for myself that was huge. The other one was this one with the lady in the red dress, which I loved as soon as I saw it. I'm like, that's my first one. That's my first one I'm ever going to do, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to keep it for myself. And I ended up actually doing that. Here it is right here, hanging on my wall in my kitchen right now. And the third one was this one, called Snowman with Black Cat. And I did this one and gave it to my mom. And I love this one. This was another step up even from that stained glass welcome that I just showed you. This was like, I don't even remember how many pages this was, and it was small and intricate and big, and it was everything that, and it looked awesome. I'd never even had seen a design like this before. I loved it. I loved it. This was Christmas of 2010 that I did this. And this one, I ranted about this in one of my other videos, I think, was the first one where I started to notice, because of all the black, dark background, that if I got close enough, I'm not going to get close enough to show you, but if I get close enough, I can see my white Aida in behind, like it's not tight, dark stitches. This was the first one that I really started to notice that. And that's when I started to discover, like, hey, you know what? There's things other than 14 count Aida. It doesn't all have to be on 14 count white Aida every single time. So this was my last one that I ever did on 14 count Aida. And the reason was because of the, all right, I'll get in. These stitches, if you get real close, are not tight and dark enough for my liking. If you step back even just a couple of feet, it's fine. But with a scrutinizing eye like mine for what I do with my own stuff, I notice all the imperfections way more than the perfections. And I'm just like, I really wish I would have done that on 18 count. So with those 3 patterns that I bought, I noticed something. 2 of them said Mystic Stitch on them, and one of them said Heaven and Earth Designs. And I thought, I wonder if these ones are this awesome, I wonder if maybe they have some other ones that are just as awesome. So that's how I discovered Heaven and Earth Designs and Mystic Stitch back in like 2010 or 2009, whenever I bought those patterns. And I, again, have never looked back, because once I find something I like, I stick with it forever until something sort of like jostles me off the rails and, you know, alters my tunnel vision. So like everything that I still have in my to-do pile is either Mystic Stitch or Heaven and Earth, because once I discovered them, I found so many of them, a lifetime's worth, that I'm like, I don't even have time to do all these. Why am I looking for other things when I don't even have time to do all these? So that's really all I have now. After that, I did this one called George's Leaves, which I really like, and I'm actually not convinced that it's not hanging upside down right now. It might be. But, the one thing I don't like about this, I don't want to keep pointing out things I don't like. Like, I do good stuff. It's good. I like it. But I didn't finish it close enough to, sorry, I had to walk up the stairs to come here. Now I'm fucking out of breath. I didn't finish it close enough to Christmas to get it framed properly. So I slapped it in a frame of my own. And okay, it's okay, but it would look a lot sharper in a properly matted, properly stretched, proper frame by a proper person, not just me slapping it in somewhere. So I've been meaning for a long time to sneak this out of here and get it redone properly, but here it is. How many years later? 7 or 8 years later, still haven't done it. After that, I did this. And this was a really quick and relatively easy, like it looks way more sort of intricate than it actually is if you look at it really closely. Not a huge pattern and not as complicated as it looks. But this is often everybody's favorite whenever they come in and see and look at all my stitchings. This often gets pointed out as the favorite. And yeah, it's pretty good. Also, huge difference doing it on 18 count. I'm not going to get like super close. Okay, I will. But what a huge difference doing it on 18 count over doing it on 14 count with the dark background. Like it just looks so much better doing it that way. I've never done it another way since this one. This one I did in 2014 or 2015, something like that. I think it was 2014. I love this one. Like I almost like, for having never done a Christmas one for myself, this is one of the ones that I would love to keep for myself, but it's sort of my mom's style too. And like, it looks really good at her house. And I don't know that I really want to do the same pattern again, even though I like it and I'd like to have it. I don't know that I'd wanted to just stitch the same thing twice. So I'm happy to just have it here, but she keeps this one up all year long, even though it's Christmassy, because it's big and fancy and looks awesome. And I believe lastly, we've got this one. This is the one that I did. I finished this for Christmas of 2018, right before my son Dylan was born. And I rushed to get it done because I knew once he's born, how much time am I going to have to do stitching at all, let alone, do Christmas presents for other people. So I really put a rush on to get this done for Christmas of 2018 because I wasn't sure when I was going to be able to ever do another one. And this is the one that I was originally working on, Moonstone, and I abandoned that one in favor of this one, partially because I wasn't really sure that my mom was actually going to like that moon, but also because right around this time, my grandfather had just passed away, and that was my mom's dad. And she told me the story about how she was sitting knitting by her big window one morning, and a cardinal flew and sat there on a branch of the tree and just kind of like stared in at her. We never see cardinals around here. And she, not to get all like mysticky and spiritual or whatever, but like she kind of like felt like that was some kind of a sign from her dad, or at least that's how like she sort of felt about it. So I was like, well, fuck me. What am I giving you a moon for when I could be giving you a cardinal? So I threw that one into a drawer and I whipped out this cardinal instead, which I think for reasons of like how much it's more her style and the grandfather thing. And, it's awesome. I love this one. I think it was a better choice. It was not fun to do, I will admit, not because it's difficult or anything, but because look how much of it is just gray and white. And like, it wasn't exactly fun, but when I finished it and I like unfolded it, ironed it, and like flipped it out, I was like, my goodness, I think that's one of the best ones I ever did. One of the least enjoyable experiences, but one of the best finished products. It's great. I'll toot my own horn on that one. This one turned out really good. So I think that's about it for the impromptu tour of my mom's house. I hope that was somewhat enjoyable. There's more cross stitchings that I've done. A few that I did for myself that are currently hanging on my own wall that I think I showed you before. This one, and this one. And there's also a bunch more that I remember doing that have just, I guess, just not survived, or maybe they're buried in the basement somewhere. Like I did a lot of little things, or like things out of my cat pattern books, with puns. Cats have personality, that kind of stuff, like stuff that I remember doing and I just have no idea where it is. But it was good practice, and the ones that survived and ended up on all the walls, I think, oh, there is one more. This one right here. I did this one and gave it to my sister after my first nephew was born, and I couldn't do the sunflowery one that I want to do for myself, I guess. I did this one because she really likes turtles, and it was her first baby, and it's a mother baby and a turtle, not mother baby, a mother turtle and a baby turtle, and it was super fun to do and didn't take me very long, so I gave that one to my sister. Anyway, there I am, interrupting myself. So that's it for the tour of my mom's house. And my wife is texting me like, what the hell are you doing? Where are you? I thought you were going to be gone for 5 minutes, and I've been gone for like 2 hours already. So I got to get home. I don't know if this is going to be its own video or if this is going to be just edited into a normal video. I don't know that I want to just do an impromptu thing and just toss it up there without any planning whatsoever. But we'll see. So that was a little bit too abrupt of an ending for me. I wasn't really sure if I was going to use that as its own standalone thing or not, but obviously I am. So I just wanted to say happy 2021, everyone. I'll be back soon, probably this week, with a real video. Whenever the kids go back to school, I'll probably squeeze one in. And thanks for watching. And here's a few seconds of my cat licking his nuts.